Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. In his work on moral virtue, Plutarch is going to distinguish virtue and vice, in particular temperance and intemperance, apart from some things that are not actually virtuous or vicious, but lie somewhat in between. This is a treatment similar to that of Aristotle and the Aristotelians, but Plutarch is a Middle Platonist. And so an important part of this distinction is being able to say how intemperance, the particular vice that has to do with our bodily desires or appetites for pleasures, how is that different than lack or loss of self-control? Some people think that they're actually the same. Plutarch says, no, they're quite different. Well, the very first thing is that intemperance is indeed a full-fledged vice, as he's going to put it. It is pantele, right? So entirely vicious. It's not the totality of vice, but it's definitely one of the big ones. Now, lack of self-control, akrasia, as opposed to akolasia, something less, elachon in Greek, than a full vice. It's on the way to vice. If you indulge it enough, you will eventually become vicious as a result. But before you're actually vicious, you can lack self-control. So what's going on here? How are they fundamentally different? So Plutarch thinks that we have a rational part of ourselves and we have an irrational part of our soul or our psyche. And in vice, particularly that of intemperance, we have a bad passion or appetite, a desire, and reason, the rational part, logos or the logikon or logike, is also gone wrong. It's been corrupted. It's gotten bad as a result. It's kakos, right? So that's the case for intemperance. Both parts are screwed up. With lack of self-control, notice he doesn't say you have good reason as opposed to bad reason. You have reason, and you also have a bad passion or desire. Now, why doesn't he say good passion? Because or good reason, because it is reason. It's rational. It does the things that reason's supposed to do, but it's not quite strong enough, perhaps. And maybe it's being misled by some spurious lines of reasoning. Later on, he'll actually talk about the person who suffers from lack of self-control as being sophistic. And, sophisms are bad arguments. Now, he doesn't truly follow up on this, but it's an interesting idea nonetheless. So he's going to say that under the influence of the bad desire or passion, intemperance is incited by desire to shameful conduct, aischron, the opposite of the kalon, which can be translated as good, but also as beautiful, honorable, intrinsically worthwhile. So the shameful, the things that we find gross, disgusting. We say, oh, that's terrible, don't do that. By contrast, the person who has a lack of self-control, or rather who's had by his lack of self-control,
The passions exist, they're badly directed, and they turn out to be stronger than reason. How do you know that they're stronger than reason? Because they win. And reason goes along, we might say, kicking and screaming, reluctantly, not cooperating with it. In the person who's intemperate, he's going to say the judgment, the krisis, the faculty of judging things correctly, is actually corrupted as well. So that's gone bad. And the perception of error or sin, the hamartia, and he uses for the word perception aesthesis, which among the ancient Greeks can mean like sense perception, but it can also mean perception of what we could call moral qualities, being able to see that something is just or unjust. That is perception. So the perception has been thrown away, literally, lost, because of the judgment being bad. In the person who has a lack of self-control, their judgment is intact. Unfortunately, they don't follow their good judgment. It winds up being overwhelmed or overcome by the force of the passion. And we'll come up with some examples for this in a moment because we do want to draw out these distinctions. So what does he say about what reason does? So it's very interesting that the person who's intemperate, reason does not fight against passion. It does the opposite. It actually guides it. It takes it to where it wants to go. So you're like, I think I want to eat that last bit of cake that I was saving for my significant other. But that cake is really attractive. This is actually an example that somewhat derived from Aristotle. Don't eat the sweet thing. You're going to go eat the sweet thing nonetheless. Reason says, yeah, you should enjoy that sweet thing. It doesn't just say, no, don't do that. It says, you deserve it. Indulge yourself. And it even, as he says, advocates for the passions. And he uses some judicial language here in talking about that. So it's hufhegetai, right? To lead, and then sun agoreuon. Right? So it advocates for the passion. It tells the passion, hey, it's okay for you to do that, and the person does that. Reason in the person who has a lack of self-control fights against the passion. He uses the word make, it battles the passion, but it loses. But it continues to argue against, or at least talk against, anti-legon, literally saying stuff about it, like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, don't eat that piece of cake, what's wrong with you, If it argues against the passions, even as it follows them, even as it goes along with them. And it goes further than this. So not only does reason provide guidance and justification, we might say, on the part of the intemperate person, reason has a certain joy or pleasure in doing so. It shares in the sins or errors, the hamartia, with pleasure, pleasantly, right? So it enjoys what's going on. That's how you can tell it's actually corrupted. On the other hand, reason is going to share in those sins or errors, but it grieves. The word that he uses there is achomeno, which could mean, it's translated here as is reluctant. It's not happy about the outcome, right? It grumbles, we could say. And a little bit later, he's going to frame this in terms of the voluntary and the involuntary, what it is that we're actually going along with. He says that reason in the vicious person willingly, hekon, that's a really important Greek term, is brought into, again, shameful conduct, right? So reason chooses in a certain way. It goes along with of its own accord. In the person who has a loss or lack of self-control, he says that reason betrays the honorable, gives away the kalon to its opponent, namely to the passion or the appetite, but it does so unwillingly, akon. It has to do it, but it doesn't want to do it. There's a conflict within it. And he's going to give you a whole bunch of interesting examples taken from mostly poets. He says that so that the difference between them is not less manifest in their words than their actions. Here's some sayings of intemperate people. What pleasure can there be, what joy without the golden Aphrodite, without having sex, right? May I die when things like this no longer comfort me. Okay, that's an intemperate person. Another says, to eat, to drink, to have one's way in love, all other things I call accessory. They prioritize the things that are really about temperance. Eating, drinking, having sex, right? And he brings up another one, when you can't get what you want, leave me to die, for that is best for me if I can't get what I want. Okay, so that's the intemperate person. What about the akratic person, the person who lacks or loses self-control? He says, a mind I have, but nature forces me. Mind is gnome, actually judgment. Again, krisis and gnome are sort of similar to each other. Another, alas, from God this evil comes to men, when knowing what is good, agathon, they don't do it. So you know what the right thing is to do, your reason tells you that, but you do something different instead. Then he's got this really interesting metaphor that leads us into nautical imagery. The spirit yields and can resist no more, like an anchor hook in sand among the surge. So an anchor in sand is not going to hold the boat in place. That's, as he says, the anchor hook is what is not as under the control of reason nor firmly fixed, but surrenders its judgment to the loose and soft part of the soul. And then he talks about, I, like some ship, am tied by ropes to shore, and when the winds blow, our cables do not hold. They break, right? And you go out. And he's going to conclude this with another sailing metaphor. He says, the intemperate man is swept along to his pleasures by his desires with sails full spread and delivers himself over to them and steers his course directly to them. So there's no hesitation. Reason and passion say, let's go get that thing that we want over there. What about the akratic or uncontrolled person? He's got this metaphor of they zigzag. Why do they zigzag? Because reason wants to do something different than what passion wants to do. Now, they are going to shipwreck eventually. They're going to wind up in the shameful conduct that they shouldn't do. They are going to betray the good, but they're weaving away from it if they can. And so this is a really important contrast. You know, Plutarch doesn't say this in so many words, but we can say intemperance is definitely bad. It's a vice, right? Akrasia, it's not good. It is actually bad, but it's definitely not as bad as the intemperate person. And why so? Because the better part of the person, it's just not effective in this case, but it's still there. You can perhaps shore it up and reason with them and move them out of their lack of self-control into self-control and perhaps on the way to virtue. Whereas the person who's vicious, maybe they can get out of their vice, but it's going to take a hell of a lot more even to get them to be able to see that they're doing the wrong thing. The person who loses self-control, they know they're doing the wrong thing, that they're not doing the right thing. The person who's vicious thinks they're doing the right thing in doing the wrong thing.